Good now, revolutionaries, and welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show.
The Rise Up Morning Show.
I don't know about you guys, but today I'm feeling some kind of way because I have the old mug, and I'm drinking my coffee out of the old mug. I called it back out of retirement because the new mug is out in my truck. It's doing double duty. Hey, what do you know about that? But I feel some type of way because I told this mug when I put it on my shelf, I said, hey, man, thanks for your work, for your service. You can just rest easy now, and it's working hard.
We still
today.
need a one-off, though, with your ghoul on it because it's just not right that mine is here and yours.
I have one. That one's in my my mug cabinet. That one's still working. You honestly, though, you can't tell that it's my ghoul. Your ghoul is so much more distinct. This one's, just the regular one.
I don't know.
Alex
The
and
rainbow
I,
ghoul.
yeah, it's very subtle. It's hard to pick up on a stream, but it is pretty special. So maybe I'll bring him around. Speaking of special, we're joined today by our friend, special guest, Mr. Morgan Kuphal. And Morgan,
Hey.
I see you're sipping coffee too.
I am indeed. Gotta. Especially morning show. I'm not typically that much of a morning person, but hey, gotta wake up for Rise Up. So super excited to be here, guys.
I like that. Gotta wake up for Rise Up. Well, for the folks who don't know you, I'll give you a quick intro, and then I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Morgan is a longtime friend of the show. He's the CTO and co-founder of Tunnl. They're building infrastructure for content mining that's going to help people like us, creators, earn tokenized rewards for their engagement on X, on TikTok, on Instagram, so on and so forth. He got his start in Web3 after winning a Chainlink hackathon. I'd like to hear more about that with a prototype that became Chainlink Functions. This is a tool that lets smart contracts access real-world data. And before that, he worked in computer vision, industrial automation at a robotics company after building and selling his first e-commerce business in college. So he's really been all over. He's got a lot of fun stuff in his entrepreneurial background, but is a big nerd like us about smart contracts, AI, decentralized networks, trustless agreements, so trust can flourish across the internet, and we are so thrilled to have him. Did I miss anything, Morgan? And can I officially say, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Man, you got it. You really do your research around here. I definitely appreciate it. But yeah, I think you pretty much covered it. I mean, from the start in Web3 with the Chainlink hackathons to kind of where we are now.
I'd like to hear a little more about that because when I first got you on my radar, it was from Alex, who mentioned that you were in the audience, and he said, yeah, Morgan used to be over at Chainlink working out stuff over there. How did it come to be that you learned what Web3 was and that Chainlink was like the front door you came through?
Yeah, so, I mean, I got my start in Web3, like, I had this e-commerce company in college, and I think, like, one of the biggest things I was spending money on is not even the product. I spent as much on marketing as I did the product. And it was just like Google ads and stuff like that. And I always wanted to break into like influencer marketing and working with creators. But the process is you basically you have to cold outreach DM somebody, hope they reply, and then send them money up front to like post. And like, I don't know this person, right? They're just some rando on social media. And so I just never was able to do it. And so like a few years later, I actually learned about Web3 and smart contracts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this totally solves the problem. Like I can put funds in escrow and have them released as soon as someone posts the required content. And then you quickly realize like blockchains do not connect to the internet. So you really can't get that data into your smart contracts.
Yeah. Kind of a problem.
Yes, exactly. And so that's, you learn about Chainlink and connecting the Web 2 and Web 3 worlds, right? So Chainlink had like data streams where you can get price data or sort of specific data sets, like it might be the price of a token or whatever. But they have no ability to access like other data. So in my case, I wanted social media data. So I like learned this. I'm like, well, what can you do to actually make Chainlink nodes able to pull the data that you need? And I came up with this concept of just what if the nodes can run an arbitrary JavaScript in like a secure environment, reach consensus on that result, and return it on chain. So no longer do you have to set up a whole network just for a specific data set that you need. You can get any data. So anything that you see on the internet that you want to use in your smart contract, you can now actually use this. And so that was really the idea, built that out during the course of the hackathon. I didn't really know like JavaScript. Like, I mean, I had a computer science degree, so it's not like I didn't have experience, but really like just like, man, just dove in and realized, you know, it's not that hard to teach yourself things if you're willing to dedicate like 40 to 60 hours a week at it. So it is a lot of work, but hey, I managed to win a prize.
Man, that's killer. And so that got the attention of the Chainlink team, I imagine.
Yeah. Patrick Collins. I don't know if you know him. Man, he'd be a great
No.
guy to land on the show too. So,
What does he do over there?
So Patrick, he no longer works at Chainlink Labs. He was the DevRel lead at the time. So he managed all the hackathons, did stuff like that. And so he would like announce the show, and like he's the one that I like knew. And he made YouTube videos about like tutorials about how to make smart contracts and set up Chainlink nodes. So that guy, I really owe a lot of my start in Web3 to him, and he was who I reached out to after I won the prize, and they got me in touch with somebody to interview with.
Man, I really have to say, some killer developer relations people across the Web3 space. Like I have yet to meet anybody who tells me, oh, I do DevRel for whatever, who's just not kind, like go out of their way to make you feel welcome kind of person. I think a lot of these teams really nail it. I met Sven from Polkadot at the last ETH Denver. He's awesome. I see Nader Dabbit all the time on Twitter, who seems to be really helpful and friendly. And I'm not surprised about that. Something you said, though, it just, I don't know, Alex, what this would be like. What did you say? You were working 40 to 60 hours a week learning a new programming language. And I was sitting, when I met Sven at ETH Denver, he was talking about learning Rust because it was new to him. Even though it was a big part of their ecosystem, he's like, yeah, I'm just working on learning Rust a couple hours a week at a time and practicing deploying my own smart card. And I was just like, man, the freedom you must feel, you know, like I wish I could just learn a new programming language because that's what I was going to do this week. I admire it.
I think now too, it's so fun learning new languages with AI, because it used to be you like start out by like, okay, what's the syntax? What's the basic hello world program? Now what I do to learn fastest is I'll like actually have a goal like, hey, I want a script that likes all these tweets in a thread. And I can just have the AI do that. And because I'm actually like having the AI write code that I've got a specific real goal and real problem I need to solve, you just learn so much faster rather than just doing tutorials.
Okay. Again, amazed at it. I love that we live in an age where, you know, that's what's happening in real time. So we have a lot of stuff that we want to cover in terms of, I feel like our audience would love to hear more about what Chainlink does and your perspective on it, because we talk about it a lot as being such a critical piece of the infrastructure of our space, for real world assets, for content, for verification, all kinds of stuff. I also want to learn more about Tunnl. And I also want to get to some of the discussion we have planned for the day. Alex, you were talking about clearing up misinformation about Pectra. We're not developers. You mentioned you're not terribly familiar with that upgrade, but there seems to be a lot of misinformation going around right now, and it'd be great to have somebody who's a little more technical. So I feel like maybe Tunnl's a great place to go next, and then to say to the live audience, if you have a question that you'd like us to get into with Morgan, let us know. And if you're not listening to the show live, but you can hear the sound of my voice, first of all, hello, wherever you are. I hope your candles are green. Come join the live show sometime. We're here Monday through Thursday on all your favorite platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, X, YouTube. We would love to see you here. Now, you went from Chainlink, you went to Tunnl while people are giving us their comments. Maybe that seems like a good place to go. But Alex, did you want to dwell?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was just gonna say that we owe one shout out for bringing these two worlds together and introducing me to Morgan originally, which is of course Eric, my friend that I just the cutest meet cute ever was me and Eric, and then we've now found each other at another conference since then, and I'm hoping that I'll just randomly run into him again next week, because Consensus is where we met originally. So shout out to Eric for introducing me to Morgan and getting me a little bit more into the crypto scene on LinkedIn. Another quick shout out. So Morgan, I appreciate the boost over there, because we do stream on LinkedIn, and I think that's one of those just like slept on little secrets of content in crypto, because the conversation, Will phrased it best. He's like, LinkedIn is great because it's for real conversation, because it's social media that your boss is monitoring.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and I know you do a lot of work over there.
Yeah.
And I would really like to try to like spend a little more time deliberately, because the times that I've written like a big comprehensive thread about a topic, I get not like a ton of engagement, but I get like 5 or 6 comments that are just like full paragraph, really well thought out, really good stuff. So excited to blend those two worlds a little bit.
Not a platform where like it's really virality. It's like you just focus
Yeah.
on building relationships with, maybe 1,000 or so people. I mean, like I get some posts that I have like, 5 or 10 or even 20,000 views, but that's super rare. I got like a small handful of those, but I get a lot of posts where it's like 500, views, but like the comments are super engaged. And I think like sometimes the numbers get messy in people's heads where they're like, oh my gosh, like you don't have like 100,000 followers. Like who even are you? It's like, no, because what matters now is how engaged your audience is versus how large it is. Like, think of a room of like 1,000 people. That's so many people. Like, I would love to speak in a room of 1,000 people, and it's so easy to do that by just tapping in.
Dude, that's such an important point. I think often about that when I go to post anything, especially on TikTok where my biggest audience lives. It's pretty much guaranteed that if I post a video, at least 1,000 people will see it. And I take that so seriously. Like I'm giving a speech for 1,000 people. So whatever I'm saying had better be a really good, I really better be justifying the ask for their attention, because that's, I don't know, hours of human life that I'm just taking.
Yeah,
because
even
TikTok
videos
is going to
that
serve me
flop
to them.
are hundreds and hundreds of hours of watch time.
Makes me.
Well, I'm not there yet. I've still got quite a lot of shit posts, so follow me for those. But I feel like there's also a different it depends the arc you're on with your content. Like you guys have been doing it a long time. I've literally only been making daily videos for 6 weeks now, and so I think to start, like a lot of people should just put content out there and like force yourself to post every single day.
I agree.
Eventually, you're gonna get to the point where you're gonna have a content plan. You got a social media strategy. Frankly, I'm not there yet. I'm like, no, I still need to figure out like what content am I even good at, what resonates with people, and then we can start to tailor it in, maybe a few months down the road.
That's such an important point. That's the number one tip I give people who want to create content is you've got to be consistent before you can get like good. You can't have any expectation of yourself. You got to know what platforms work for you, how to make the content, what your style is, what you like to do before you can consider it a success or a failure. Totally.
Definitely.
Yeah, just accept that your first 300 videos are going to be ass, and everything in your life will get easier. Like I still go back and rewatch those really, really old ones and then just kind of like track progress. And I watch every video I post like 6 or 7 times immediately. And then I go back and revisit them periodically and just mark progress. And here I am thousands of videos deep, and I'm still constantly taking notes and trying to improve little things like cadence was off, pacing was bad. I jumped topics here, like this skip was bad, this clip didn't work out nicely, like I didn't like this hook, whatever it is. You'll never, anyone who's truly learning something will never finish learning.
That's big facts.
Man. Okay.
Anyway.
Are you taking it?
I was just going to say, I just wanted to make sure we gave Eric his credit for bringing us together, and then shout out Morgan for doing some solid content on LinkedIn. That is final plug, just because I know we have some other people who do make content and are working on getting better and better and better. LinkedIn is like such a secret in the Web3 space, like because like Morgan kind of alluded to, and I guess this is sort of topical, and maybe Morgan, we can lead into a little bit more about the impetus for Tunnl, because we're talking about content here. The threshold for like a post to do well on LinkedIn is so low, and the number of people who use it and post, like the statistic that blew my mind was in order to be in the top 0.1% of content creators on LinkedIn, you just need to post more often than once a week, and you're in that slot. And there was a fantastic interview. Stephen Bartlett interviewed the CEO of LinkedIn, and it was just like a really, really good interview, lengthy about the whole process and building that platform and why it was, a terrible idea that turned out to be incredible and all this kind of stuff. But for real, like I feel like if we were to move with purpose and bring like 50 Web3 creators to LinkedIn and have just like a cohort of people that engaged with all of our, I can't even begin to describe to you the amount of push that you would get on LinkedIn if 50 people interacted with everything that you posted over there. Like my posts on LinkedIn either get 3 likes or 500, and there is almost no in between. So shout out.
Yeah,
Quick tip.
Quick tip there for anybody that's brand new that's trying to grow there. It's all about the DMs. You need to connect with people over DMs. So the nice thing about LinkedIn is it lets you grind like that because the messages are so good. You can send 100 connection requests per week. Customize those message requests, and like you can get 1,000 followers in just a few months if you're actually like doing good outreach, post good content, have good custom messages to specific people, and now you've got an audience.
That's interesting. And you would suggest how would you suggest finding those people? Are like people you talk to in your industry, people you want to grow with?
Yeah, so I would say like just looking at comments on, so like scroll the feed, make sure you're kind of looking up Web3 stuff and like just look at comments and find people that are actually engaging with good comments and send them a custom message like, hey, I really liked your comment here about this or that. Great point. Would love to connect with you. Don't send out just a generic connection request, but if you actually like compliment someone on their post and be like, hey, really good post, I like this or that, man, I mean, my connection request rate's got to be like 80% when I do that.
I think that's so important because a lot of people want to become creators or they want to participate more in a creator dialogue. I think they feel kind of like left out, or maybe they just want to get to know somebody who seems like they've got a big following. They'll never notice me. And I feel like that is the secret sauce. I've known a lot of people who very adeptly navigated comments or messages with specific added value that stood out from noise. I feel like that's how I got to know a lot of people on social media before I really started creating any kind of content. Was I had a clear profile picture. I had the same profile picture. I showed up consistently in the same kind of people's comments, and they weren't like, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, super celebrities, but they were people who talked about what I talked about, who did what I did, that I wanted to get to know better because I wanted to be more like them. And just by paying attention to what they were talking about and participating in their conversations, it was easy for me, and this is, before GPT, it was easy for me to say, just naturally, oh my gosh, I totally feel that, or here's what worked for me, or here's a question I have that, is really helpful and everyone in your audience is thinking this and you can reply to my comment because I gave you the good question. I don't know. There's just so much you can do with a little bit of intention. Have you always been like interested in the content problem, and what is it that makes you interested in, I don't know, this particular communication problem in the age of social media?
I'm not even someone that ever aspired to be like a creator or anything like that. I kind of just recognize that this is a skill set that I think is probably one of the most important ones that you're not going to replace with AI, that there's just a constant demand for being able to communicate and connect with people. And so more than even some desire to like create content, I just recognize this is a skill set that I can develop. And it's not something I started out at being good at. Like, my first podcast was brutal. I mean, it was really rough. Like watching it back, like my teeth hurt. Like I'm cringing so hard. At just like, I had written like an entire thing. I basically just read a speech for like 30 minutes.
Oh no.
No interruptions. It was awful. And I think you kind of like, so I recognize that I'm not good at this. I want to be good at this. And I've been on probably like a 3-year journey of starting out LinkedIn text posts just because it's really accessible. And if you're like someone that's a little bit technical or you've got something to say, like it's just so easy to start there. And then, started ramping it up, like video demos of little projects I made. Like at Chainlink Labs, I've got these like super corny videos of like this little demo of some code tool I made. And you just kind of keep building from there. So I think you just kind of have to embrace like not all your videos are going to be good, but you can learn to be like a creator, and you don't even have to think about yourself like that. Like I just think that like you're just a person that like has a skill, and you don't even have to be like pushing for that. Just like, this is just the next medium. This is the new way that people work.
That's a good way to say it. Okay, then let's come back to Chainlink in a minute. I want to know more about what it was that led you to start creating Tunnl.
Yeah.
What's the problem we're solving here, and what is Tunnl as a solution? I gave it a quick introduction, but people are just joining us live. Morgan is the CTO there, and it's a content play. Driving attention and engagement with tokenized rewards is what their website says, but what does that mean?
Exactly. So Tunnel is basically a platform that rewards creators for posting content that meets certain requirements or soon like engaging with specific posts so that we can reward the attention that creators are able to generate. There's always that, slogan, attention is currency, right? We're in this modern attention economy. And so it's only fair that people get rewarded for the attention that they're able to generate. And I think that's the core thesis behind Tunnel. So like, what does that really mean? I mean, honestly, like we've evolved, we started out with this idea where, hey, we've got this escrow problem. How do you hold funds and only release them if somebody actually does the work, right? The core trust problem that I think a lot of us are familiar with in Web3. So we kind of thought, oh, if you just build a solution where you can send someone an offer, they do it, you verify it, and then release funds, that's going to be great. Everyone's going to love it. And while it did get some traction, we realized the problems with creator marketing are so much more than just like the security and trust problem. It's like there's the connection problem. There is then verifying like what kind of content. And then probably the biggest thing is doing it at scale. Because I think a lot of times like you can still make agreements with people over DMs, and yeah, there's some risk of scams. But it's pretty low and like people can get flamed for it. So the real unlock is what is a way where you can work with hundreds or thousands of creators in one way, because that's what brands want. It used to be you'd work with like a Mr. Beast or some really big creator. And now the ROI is not there to the same degree. It's much better if you can work with smaller creators that have a much closer connection with their audience. But like, how do you do that? I mean, I can't have like a spreadsheet of 10,000 names on it and like manually be DMing and sending payments to each one.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even verify that? So I think
Easy to
that's the
gain.
real problem we've stepped into now.
Okay. And for folks who, maybe are at a level 1, I think this is
Sure.
a great place to talk about how smart contracts actually can do the work of verifying that. We talk often about the problem of like pairing information in one place with information from another to do that verification process for us. What does it actually look like?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing to me is smart contracts are a really incredible escrow tool. I know there's a lot of stuff with DeFi and all that, and it's incredibly powerful and complex, and honestly, a little over my head a lot of times. But if you just think of smart contracts as escrow, I lock funds, and then I need to release funds to a certain person based on some condition. That's really what Tunnl does at its core, and our condition just happens to be making a post on social media that meets certain requirements. So in our case, like right now we're just on X, and we only support verifying text posts. We already have proof of concepts for other content, but
Sure.
keep it simple. So a brand is going to list requirements like must talk about our product and say these key points, like, oh, we're the best DeFi exchange for these 3 reasons. Like you need to mention that, mention our product V2 launch date on whatever date, maybe quote a tweet or tag a particular account. So got these requirements. A creator can then come and claim a deal at a certain price based on their real profile metrics like smart followers, engagement, etc. They can then draft a post that meets their listed requirements, make sure it passes like a pre-verification, post it, then submit their URL to Tunnl. And then what we're going to do is that URL gets submitted to the smart contract privately. Then we're able to use this Chainlink functions tool. The Chainlink Oracle network is then going to pull the post. It's then going to query an LLM, and we've got like some custom logic there where it makes sure that the post actually meets the requirements. Now it's verified. Then 48 hours later, just to make sure someone doesn't delete their post, we do another check. Hey, is the post still live, not edited, etc. Then release the funds.
I'm curious how you come up with or how you've been surprised by parameters, because something Alex and I deal with now that we're in like the sponsorship game and trying to meaningfully partner with brands. And this might be kind of a theme that we have this week is I feel like brands, especially in crypto, have like all the wrong metrics in focus. You know what I mean? Like they want to pay somebody who posts on crypto Twitter, who has 100,000 followers, who are mostly bots, to write a single tweet with the goal of making it go viral. And that's to them, something they'll pay between $10,000 and $50,000 plus for. And in my mind, like, I don't want one engagement if I'm a brand. I don't really care how many views you get. I'm much more interested in the kind of metrics you're talking about, which is like, how often do the people that follow this person show up for them? Is it a 1% conversion rate, or is it an outsized conversion rate like 10 or 20%? What's the trust here like? How often do people engage with this? I'm very proud to say, I always tell people, we have the most trusted source for live crypto education on the internet, as measured by, I could pull up literally thousands of comments from everyday people all over the world who say, I trust you guys. You guys have earned my trust. I don't trust anyone in this space, but I trust you. Whatever. You've helped me understand this. Thank you. And to me, that is a really hard thing to quantify and put in a package and present in a deck. So how have you worked with people to do that, and where do you feel like it falls short? Or do you have any insights or suggestions for people who are trying to quantify that kind of thing? What makes content valuable? So it's not just you got 100,000 likes, here's the money kind of thing.
Yeah, I think one big tool for this is something called like smart followers, where what you can do is you can identify, a bunch of key accounts that you actually do know. And it's a high touch manual process of like, hey, I know these, 5,000 or however many people, and like they've been posting content consistently, and you can look and make sure there's not a lot of bots. Once you identify these smart followers, you can now create like a social graph of who they follow, and you can score, like weight these scores based on like the score of this smart follower and how many smart followers does another person have, and create this scoring system to identify which accounts have the most influence within a particular community. So we're kind of starting, like, I would say Tunnl gets to start on easy mode because Web3 on Twitter has this incredibly well-connected community. And so we're able to use this smart follower technique without even having to do it ourselves, because there's services like Tweet Scout where they just provide this as a service. They got an API, you can see someone's smart followers and their score. And so that's what we're able to use to like quantify somebody on X specifically. And I think the cool thing is we've decided, let's start with the easier problem of X, then we'll experiment with other platforms and figure out what kind of engagements are valuable there. Because the engagements that are valuable on X, like X is a lot of time just like, you need to kind of coat the timeline with reasonably good content, because tweets don't last very long. So you kind of need this stream of content. Where something on LinkedIn, a post might still be getting good views after a week. So maybe there it's like a much higher value post. You have to verify much higher quality of content. And so you need to tailor the platform for that. So I think some people just, they think, if I do this on one social media platform, then I just bring it over to another platform. Oh, it's just going to work. And like, that's not how it works at all. I learned that just creating content and now actually building tooling for these platforms.
Yeah, I love that you have this kind of 360 view. So what's next for Tunnl then? And what problems are you going to solve next? And how can somebody like me participate? How can we help and give you valuable feedback and try it out? We're content guys. We love it.
Yeah. So right now, just on X, as I mentioned, so you can, it's app.tunnl.io, Tunnl. You can go there. We do have some campaigns live right now. So we just launched, like full clarity. Last Wednesday, was the first day we went publicly live. We'd been in private beta for a while, getting our audit straight and making sure the system was sound. And now that we're open in public, people can come claim a deal on any one of the campaigns we've currently got listed live. It'll have a set payout. So we're still like dialing in payment formulas and stuff like that. So this is something that's going to evolve over time. But for now, claim those deals, post a tweet that meets the requirements, and those funds are going to be released 48 hours later. We support any like multiple tokens and all that sort of thing. Most of the deals are USDC. Some are like points. If you're like into airdrop farming for points, you can do that here, or just earning tokens directly.
And this is powered by Chainlink. And I got to assume that this is like any token on any protocol. Are we just EVM compatible, or like what's the ability like there?
We can support everything. Full disclosure, like we aren't using CCIP for this because we have it where a brand is going to send us the funds and then we're able to deposit it in our own smart contract. I'm very excited to actually do more with leaning into the Chainlink tech here, but just for us to be able to support any token on any chain right away, we're sort of acting as a relayer. And like we do have some components of our system that are centralized. Like full disclosure, we use a centralized database. We don't have end-to-end encryption for like the agreement terms because we sort of have to start somewhere. And we have this vision where we know what's like, I mean, I've built the tech with, during hackathons of like, hey, could we use decentralized storage? Could we use end-to-end encryption? Can we make sure that we're using CCIP to make this system as secure, as robust as possible? The answer is yes, but you have to figure out what problems you start first. I mean, we're still at MVP stage. We're proving the concept of like, does this work? And now that it does work, we can sort of pick and like, I'm actually in a state right now where we just launched. I'd rather sit back, put out all the little fires, little bugs, and figure out what do people actually like about the protocol so we can like iterate and lean into that more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a natural place to maybe come back a little to Chainlink because clearly escrow is everything. Music Man was saying it in the comments. This is a huge unlock. And I don't know anybody else aside from Link that's really out in front, integrated with so many different protocols doing this kind of work. Alex, where seems like the most natural place to take it?
I really wanted to hit on just kind of the ways that you guys are using it specifically, or I should say, and also things that you could do, but maybe you aren't yet. You mentioned wanting to lean on it a little bit more because, so I love, do not get me wrong, I love that there is a budding ecosystem of educators and people talking about crypto on TikTok, but for a fact that there are just a plethora of people who do not really read any further than the bumper sticker. And so I think that the majority of people who know about Chainlink really only know the tagline of Oracle and then like a cookie cutter definition of what an Oracle is. And I don't think they've gone any farther, and it is just so much bigger than that. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how, maybe kind of tie it all together in a nice little package, because you started off there, you had your first, or I don't know if it was your first, but the noteworthy hackathon win also in that ecosystem, using the tech now and looking to leverage it further in the future. So I feel like it's a great opportunity to talk about how robust ecosystems like Chainlink actually are beyond just Googling stuff on chain, essentially.
Yeah, or even just to like hear the pitch from your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the 101, like what even is an Oracle network? So you've got a blockchain. You've got smart contracts where you can execute transactions based on some criteria. Like I said, escrow, for example. What an Oracle is it lets you get data from the real world onto the blockchain. Like let's say you've got an insurance agreement where if there is a fire, we're going to pay out this insurance agreement.
Yeah, okay.
That's great. You can code that on a smart contract, but who decides whether like a fire occurred? Or maybe another example that's more realistic in finance. I need to liquidate, or I've got like a loan and someone has got collateral, like maybe they have Ethereum and they took out a loan for like some USDC using that Ethereum as collateral. You need to know the price of USD to Ethereum to know, does this loan need to be liquidated? Do I need to sell this ETH so that the protocol, is actually solvent? So this is an example of like a lot of Chainlink uses where they're going to get that real world data and use it in some way, mostly for financial agreements is a lot of what they do right now. But in our case, like advertising, hey, social media agreements, I'll pay you $2 for every 1,000 views. And I'm going to promise to do that. There is no way in Web 2 that I can guarantee that. Like, you're going to have to trust that I have built a system that like, is going to send you like the money on PayPal or whatever upon these conditions. And with an Oracle now, because you have verifiable access to any real world data, you can code these agreements. Then somebody else, a third party, can look at my code, say, yep, this code is doing what it says it does. It's going to pay you on this condition. So to me, that's fundamentally what oracles do. And we could get into like the tech of how it works, like the decentralized network, like how do you make it verifiable so that you're not just trusting the oracle? And there's all sorts of ways that you can do that.
I actually feel like that's a good question. How do you, you're not somebody who's super technical. you want to get into it, but is it the blockchain explorer? I mean, that's what I always tell people. When you want to verify a smart contract, pull it up on the blockchain explorer, paste it into GPT and ask it like, what am I looking at here?
Yeah.
But I feel like it's quickly becoming difficult for anybody to really get under the hood. Do you have recommendations for verifying the Oracle?
I think that's hard. So like to just say, hey, like use ChatGPT to inquire about the smart contract, I think that's a really good place to start. The problem is these smart contracts do get so complex that like I think it's hard to even rely on AI still. And maybe we'll get to someday where, gosh, okay, if someone out there wants to build this, a tool where I can paste in like an Etherscan link to a smart contract and it just pulls all the contracts and loads them into like a ChatGPT and someone builds a tool to like audit that. I don't know if that exists. Build it. If it doesn't exist, please somebody.
Yeah, but, honestly, it would be cool.
Because it's kind of hard because like a contract, you might have, there's like the one contract, but it's got like all these dependencies and other contracts. You might have like 20 contracts that are actually interacting with this system, so it gets hard to verify.
Right.
A big thing is just looking for auditor reports right now. I think that trust transfers, people like Cypherin, shout out Patrick Collins, he runs the company Cypherin now. They do smart contract audits. They're who did our audits.
How do you spell that?
Oh man, on the spot. Yeah, CYFRIN. Here, I'll type it in the chat here.
Okay.
I'm like thinking like, can I spell this aloud correctly? I just typed it in. But Cypherin audits. There's lots of other good auditors though, so you can kind of look at that.
Yeah.
I think for big protocols, that's really your best bet instead of trying to verify it yourself.
Yeah,
In terms of like verifying how the Oracle works, I can kind of talk about that.
Okay.
It's just consensus. So in the example of like Chainlink functions and how that works, basically, if I want to see how many likes does this tweet have, if I just had one server run and fetch how many likes, that server could lie, right? Maybe they've got some incentive to lie about this. The way that you resolve this is just like how blockchains, you have consensus. Instead of having one node check that, you can have, many nodes all fetch that same tweet and then reach consensus on that response and return that on the blockchain.
Okay. Can you explain that without jargon?
Yes. Thanks for pushing me here. I sit on technical talks all day, so
it was beautifully concise, but I would love for you to break it down for our one-on-one folks.
So what consensus means is, if in this example of like wanting to see how many tweets there are and making sure no one lies, you think about it like talking to a person. If I just asked one person, that person could lie. But if I ask 100 people, then I can see what, like, take all those results and like take some average of them, right? So maybe 95% said yes and like 5% said no.
And I want to add one thing. I would say not just 100 people from the street, but like you're going to ask 100 people who are at your work or at your church or at your school who have a vested interest in maintaining some kind of relationship with you and with each other. So they're incentivized in some way. And the question is, how good are the incentives? Because people at your church or your work or your school, sometimes they do some messed up stuff.
Exactly.
But if there's an incentive for them to tell you the truth, that helps too.
Exactly. So there's like kind of two ways you can solve this. So the first is vetting people, right? We want highly trusted people. And sure, or maybe there's some, like maybe there's a hack and one of these people is all of a sudden giving bad data. But you can get people that are high quality people, and then you can also align them with staking, where they have to lock up some amount of money saying that they're trustworthy. And if you can ever prove that they were not trustworthy, you can slash that and burn their money. So that is how you can align incentives so that people have an incentive to be honest. So if you combine consensus and getting a result from many people with making sure those people are somewhat vetted, with making sure they have aligned incentives to be honest through staking or some other means, that is really how you build a robust system. And I think there is some controversy actually about the second thing I said, which is verifiable people. So with Bitcoin, there is no like anyone can run a Bitcoin node, right? And that's incredibly powerful. And same with Ethereum, anyone can run that. I think there's a lot of merit to that, But I also think that there's also a lot of merit to somewhat federated systems where there is some selection going on, and it's a really hard balance. And I think it's been a controversy in the community where there's the like OGs in the crypto space where like it should be totally anonymous, no vetting, and there's the banking world where banks are literally like there's no consensus, but they're highly regulated, they're very, very trusted entities. And I think there's sort of this middle ground where it's like we can use the concepts of decentralization. We can also use the concepts of federated systems with a little bit of like verification to build probably the most robust system. So it's kind of straddling that continuum.
So, and this is important to think about because this is how you start to apply the technology that makes crypto work to more than just money. Like, a strong incentive and consensus mechanism is really at the core of what it would take to have, say, a user-owned TikTok, for example.
Yes.
Or to have somebody who wants to sponsor content creation, like we're talking about with Tunnl now, make sure that any creator could come claim a bounty because they had fulfilled the requirements that were set out. Or even like, I don't know, if you wanted to set up a smart contract in your city for like a tree, so that people could put money into this contract and then pay out folks who picked up litter or like raked the leaves under the tree or mulched it in the fall. Like, that is how we move to verify these kinds of things and create a trustless environment where, like, I don't have to trust somebody to do what they say they're going to do, honor the agreement, pay me when it's time, whatever, or do my work. You are freed to verify a computer that can't lie, a piece of code that doesn't need to sleep, that functions like a calculator does math. And then it's a lot easier to trust all the people involved, even if you don't know each other. So we haven't talked too explicitly about functions, which is kind of like the name of the skill, the thing. I don't know, skill is the wrong word. The name of the function that Chainlink gives to like all the little tasks that you can do to verify information. Can we go there next? Because our friend Mike had a question about Tunnl specifically and who pays for that.
So Chainlink functions, it allows you to write a function that instead, like in the example where I said, fetching this Twitter data, right, or whatever data you want, you actually need to write code to do that. Like the Chainlink nodes don't just know what you want to do. You have to tell them by writing a function. And so you write this function, and then all the nodes are going to run this function. They're all going to come up with a result, and there's like some secure way that they can communicate and sign the data to reach that consensus on the one response and then return that on chain. So in a nutshell, that's basically what it is. It's, hey, developers, instead of like relying on these preset data feeds where like it's price data and Chainlink's constantly pushing that, you can write your own function, send a request, and fetch anything.
Got it. And the playground of like what is to be fetched or what is a function is really very much up to somebody's imagination and their ability to create it.
Exactly.
Which is why Chainlink is so cool. And one of the reasons it's integrated with literally, everything in our space. Would you say?
Exactly. I think so. DeFi does not exist without Chainlink. Like all those, platforms like Aave, for example, huge one. If Chainlink doesn't exist with this reliable price data that cannot be tampered with and does not fail, then DeFi does not work. You need this price data. Yeah. And again, I'm not much in the DeFi space, so I always like thinking of like new use cases that this data works for. Social media agreements is where I started because it was kind of where my passion is. However, I think insurance is something that's a really interesting space to explore. Verifiable gambling as well, like betting on sports and these sorts of things. I think people don't realize just how screwed they are getting by these traditional platforms. Like, you have for example, DraftKings. How do you know how they're setting their lines and like what their actual payouts are and what these bets are like? Where if it was a smart contract and using oracles, you could actually see like, okay, this is the results of the game. Like these are the score and this is the fee the platform's taking, like actually providing transparency in that system. I really think we're going to get to a world where consumers demand it because it's just better. Like if you had the choice between two platforms that are virtually identical, one of which is on chain where you can actually verify they're doing what they say they do, and the other one's some black box, like you tell me what you're going to choose. I think we have a long way to go to get there, frankly. We're just in the infancy of the infrastructure even existing to make this possible. Like, I literally had to go to Chainlink Labs and, work with the team and like actually build that product before we even have the infrastructure to fetch arbitrary data with our smart contracts. And so, I left there in November because the product is finally like stable and something I was able to use. So just to give you an idea of how early we are, this product was like 2 years ago, did not exist. And so if you wanted to do like a verifiable sports betting platform, like you could do it, but you literally have to set up your own Oracle network to do so. So I think we're just going to start, I think there's a 2-year lag at least before the infrastructure is available, before developers are educated on it, they learn about it and actually think of what they can build. And then, however long after that to actually build it. So we are at the start of an explosion of apps that are going to come on chain.
Tori asked a really good question here, and Mike, I promise I'm going to get to yours. I'm weaving a circle here. Where do you think people will come to demand this first? She says many people don't care about trust or data. I had this conversation yesterday where someone was like, I don't care who owns TikTok or what they take from me. I just want to use it.
Yes, I think this is really important too, where I do think that someday there is going to be consumer demand for verifiable apps, just because it's like if you've got an apples to apples comparison, I'm going to select the one that I know and can verify and trust. I don't think that we get there by selling trust though. I don't think that is the thing that makes everyone like go, oh my gosh. But the good thing about blockchain is that's not the only benefit. Like, take Tunnl for example. It's a pretty simple concept. You post content, we release funds. We could probably just build that with like a PayPal and our own centralized database and all that. But it's actually harder. I think that's the key here. It's harder for us to do that because we're now going to have to be a payment provider. We might be like a money transmitter. We might have to get certain licensing. We're going to have banking partners. That's so hard. Like, it's so hard. Like, we could never, as a bootstrap startup with no VC funding, to build a financial application that transfers funds, you're just not going to be able to do that. But with blockchain, instead of us being like this money transmitter and like actually us touching the funds ourselves, we can write a smart contract that says, hey, funds are deposited here. Creators can claim these funds based on this condition. And we've got this super smooth financial rails where, hey, instant transactions, like even that is a huge leap. People take for granted that when they send some money on Venmo or PayPal, like you think that money's right there in your, app.
Right.
But what's actually happening is there's like all these bank transfers going on. It takes days for the money to clear and these transactions to settle. So it's fine if you want to send $10 to a friend, but if you want to like send $100,000 to someone, or even like, $10,000 for like maybe some really, really great video, doing that with traditional financial systems is just not feasible. And I think people don't really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's an IOU. I wonder if stablecoins, because they're so ubiquitous, might be like the first thing to open the door. And that's why I always find myself saying, because when people understand that, or they understand Bitcoin, like that's kind of a good first place to go if you want to fast track to getting a light bulb moment about why cryptocurrency matters. And from there, it's pretty easy for me to create a bridge by saying the technology that makes cryptocurrency possible will be so much more than money, or will help you remove the need to trust, or will help you own the information that represents things that are valuable to you, like your money, but also your identity or your relationships or whatever. You know what I mean? Because when people have like a solid example, stablecoins being a pretty good one, or peer-to-peer payments or whatever, they're like, oh, wow. I had no idea that PayPal was just an IOU, or I had no idea that, I could do this without letting Western Union take a cut. Then you say, wouldn't it be great if you could do that with the character in your video game? Wouldn't it be great if you could do that with the deed to your house? You can. Wouldn't it be great if you could do that with TikTok and your videos and your likes and your profile? And people are like, yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to actually own a digital thing, like, well, here you go.
Yes.
We are early.
Yeah, so like take the example of just Venmo, because I think everyone understands Venmo, send money to a friend. Now, what I'm going to do is like a thought experiment of what if you could add these features to Venmo? So with Venmo right now, what if you could add being able to send any amount of money of any size with no fee? That would be a really cool feature.
That would
What
be a
if
cool
you
feature.
could now add instant settlement where like I can instantly take that money from my Venmo, withdraw it to do like whatever else I want to do with it, and there is no like waiting period or off-ramp period. That would also be cool. What if with Venmo I could lock money and prove I have this amount of money and I'm going to pay you if something happens? That would be another really cool feature if you could add that to Venmo. Another feature, what if you could like always verify that the person that you're sending money to is this person and they've got like a profile and they can sign for it and that you can prove that they are not compromised. That would
Or
also
not a
be
bot.
or not a bot, like that they're actually who they say they are and they've got a verifiable reputation, not like having to check, 8 different accounts like their LinkedIn and their Twitter and all this, but if it's just like this one single place where you could verify their identity of all their accounts, like who they are and the true ownership of these accounts. So if you could add all these features to Venmo, that would be a really cool Venmo. And if you could come up with a competitor to Venmo that did all those things, it'd probably win. Well, guess what? We have stablecoins, and that's what they are.
I had a really good conversation today with somebody who, before the show, was in Chris Dixon's comments. Chris Dixon's one of my favorite teachers about Web3, crypto, etc. If you want to understand these kinds of things or learn how to talk about them better, he's a great model to follow. He's spelled just like it sounds. Find him on whatever platform you like. And somebody in his comments was talking about the Genius Act for stablecoins, how it's an important inflection point. And he was genuinely asking this person, why is it that we are going to get a stablecoin that's a CBDC because, governments want to have control, or that's USDC, which is kind of in bed with banks and governments, or we're going to get Tether, which is like this black box, and they're kind of opaque. Why has nobody really done like a super big decentralized stablecoin? And I was explaining, well, we've got DAI, Maker DAI. We've had Athena's USDE. We've had Reserve Protocol. We've had some really novel experiments, but we're early, and that's a hard problem to solve because on one hand, what do? Do you peg it to a decentralized asset like ETH or Bitcoin, which is kind of volatile? You got to over collateralize it probably, so you got to spend more money to make it secure. And then also, you've got this problem of how do you create a truly decentralized instrument when the thing that gives it its value is like $1 in a bank somewhere, So even in that way, we're quite early. We have a lot of experimenting happening, but this is a great time to be paying attention if you care about this thing because the tools, they're usable, but I think in even just a year or 2 years, but especially like 5 years or 10 years, I mean, we're still trying to figure out wallet friction. You know what I mean? Sent to the wrong wallet, lost my key, whatever, golly. It is still so hard to
I've
use
definitely
this stuff.
flamed some wallets on Twitter before. I think it's a little controversial about, using these stable coins that are basically like a bank just has a bunch of money and they issue a token. So when you're using USDC, you're trusting Circle. Circle's basically a bank. And I think lots of crypto people have a little bit of a problem with that because it gets away from the ethos that is Bitcoin and like what, we're here to sort of get away from having to rely on banks. I think I'm a little bit more of conservative in my view where I'm okay with using these primitives that banks provide. I'm not a purist where I think that everything has to be decentralized and you can't use banks because at the end of the day, what I care about as a builder is building applications that people can really use and understand and get right away. And I think it's really hard to do that without stable coins. And if that means I've got to rely on a bank, like I personally don't think our banking system is going to fail. And look, if our banking system fails, like my little app is going to be the least of our problems. Like we've got way bigger problems. So if you're like a realist who wants to build applications, like I think there's something to be said about people that are like, I want to exit the financial system. And look, I hold Bitcoin for that reason. Like I have a lot of Bitcoin. I'd rather hold Bitcoin than a lot of money in a savings account a lot of times. Yeah. But if I'm just trying to build an app that everybody can use instantly, you need to have a stable asset that people know how much they're getting paid. I still don't know. Like, I'll go on an app and I'll be like, 0.01 ETH is like your minimum staking amount or whatever. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I have to Google every single time. And I do this every single day. And I still have no concept for like what 0.001 ETH is, And
Yeah,
so if
yeah.
you want to actually onboard the masses, you need to provide a Venmo-like experience. And I don't know how to do that right now without stablecoins. Maybe there are like these decentralized or collateralized stablecoins. I'm familiar with them, but they have not reached the market penetration that USDC has. And I think we have to accept that.
Yeah, it takes trust. It takes liquidity. It takes time to scale that way. And my God, you know, Music Man was saying in the comments in response to the wallet problem, like escrow, we're talking about escrow. Alex, how many times on this show and in our own conversations have we said it would probably be easy and so killer for like a team of crack devs, doesn't have to be crazy hard, to just build a simple escrow function for smart contracts to solve the dust problem. Let me approve what people want to send me before it shows up in my wallet. Is that too much to ask?
Dude, I say all the time, and I've been saying it literally for years, that I just need one person to create a wallet that I can turn off incoming transactions if I want to. Like, that's it. Just refuse deposits. That's all I want. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so maybe I'm missing something massive, but I feel like that can't be that difficult with the amount of incredible shit that I've seen people make. Like,
That's a good question, because you have this thing where you've got a private key that's attached to your wallet address. And that primitive, like, you can't prevent somebody from sending funds to, we call it an EOA, or externally owned account. So that is, I have a private key, on a ledger, on a MetaMask written down in my wallet, like whatever I have. And that primitive, you can't prevent somebody from sending funds to your EOA.
Would you have to do like...
What you can do, though, is something called a smart wallet. So the externally owned account, I have the private key. It's connected to this public wallet address, and anyone can send funds to it. I can do whatever I want with that because I have the private key. The next step to be able to have what you're referring to, programmability in my wallet, is a smart contract wallet, where instead of the wallet being connected to that public key, connected to that private key, I can say, hey, this public-private key pair actually owns this smart contract, but this smart contract is what holds the funds, not this key. And now you can do things like, hey, if I want to send money to that smart contract, because it has a programmability, it can say no. Now, we do know, I know there's some upgrades here. I'm not super close to like the Ethereum upgrades, but I know there is like programmability that wants to be built into EOAs. Actually, I'm not sure. What is the status of that? I'm curious if you guys are probably way up to news on more than me.
Well, let's find out.
That's just bullshit.
Oh, sorry. Soundboard Alex got my elbow. They have got a couple of
to button match on accident.
they have got a couple of you specifically want to know what's the status of EOAs on Ethereum. But
programmable EOAs.
They have got a couple of standards that make what I think are moves towards this. Like, I think it's 6551 that is wallet. I'm pretty sure that one turns NFTs into wallet, or it makes every wallet, it's a file folder.
Yep.
And they also have another one that maybe it's one, I don't know. I honestly will have to ask GPT to refresh me, because I'm not deep in the Ethereum community either. I know like three EIPs by name. I don't know, but tell me about 7702. I think that's a temporary thing where that's recent. Wallet. What is it? They can become a smart wallet during a transaction?
Broadly, it's account abstraction.
Yeah. Okay. So
it does touch EOA functionality, though.
Yeah, let's look up. I've got 7702. It's temporarily wallets can become a smart contract during a transaction without permanently changing their type. So you could have a more gas efficient experience. A transaction can include temporary smart contract logic, like paying a fee in a token or enforcing some kind of limit, and then the EOA reverts back to normal after the transaction is complete. And I think they do that reversion because if you leave it open, there's like vulnerability to exploitation. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like I heard somebody say that. So
I think the really cool thing here, I have yet to see the problem with smart contract wallets, I think, is that, or smart wallets, you may have heard that term, is they are locked to one particular blockchain. So if I have a smart wallet where I can receive funds on Base or Arbitrum or wherever, like every new chain can be a new contract address. And so it's a little hard where if I have this EOA, this externally owned account, I can go to any EVM, any Ethereum chain or layer 2 or whatever, and my wallet address is the same, where that's not the case with smart contract wallets. So I know that's a little bit of a problem. I think there are some solutions for that, like the EIP you mentioned. But it's still in its infancy, and so I have yet to see a really robust wallet that does that. But the thing is, like, now all this infrastructure is possible. It's going to take the devs, 1 or 2 years, if I had to guess, to really figure it out. But yeah, we are early, and so the wallet experience, like, there's a lot of friction, but that means the people that are able to navigate that friction are really well positioned.
So I'm like you, and I think Alex would agree. We're not like total decentralization maxis. It's not the perfect solution for everything, and I would be willing to give up a little of the ownership. I don't know, ownership's the wrong word. I would be willing to give a little, though, to have like not an EOA, but maybe an EOA that owns a smart contract that was collectively managed or something like that. I don't know. An escrow solution would be interesting. I feel like there are many ways you could make it work, but I would be willing to sacrifice a little bit on the flexibility of, I don't know. I've heard people say in the past too, like, you wouldn't want it not to be an EOA. You wouldn't want it not to be a private key because that would compromise in some way the freedom of it. It would impose a limit on that openness.
Just to clarify,
but I don't mind so much. Go ahead.
I would say that we are decentralization maxis in the sense that you should have the opt-in freedom to pick a centralized solution when you want one.
Yeah, exactly.
And you should be completely aware of exactly what you are sacrificing in the name of convenience. And if you would like to give up something for the sake of convenience, not only is that completely fine, but like, you should be supported in that and not scalped as a result. So I think now the problem is just that not everything, most things are very centralized, and the burden of control is like not well discussed. It's not well disclosed. So you kind of generally have no idea what the hell is going on behind the scenes. And maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you're not. You should be aware and then make a conscious decision to stay there or do something else.
There's actually, I would say, the best example of this is the Privy wallet. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, what Privy is not like MetaMask. You install it to your browser. What Privy is, it's called an embedded wallet, where instead of you having this browser extension or something on your phone that is like the Privy wallet, an application developer can integrate this into their app. So for example, we don't integrate Privy on Tunnl yet. But instead of somebody signing into Tunnl and needing to like connect their wallet or something, you can actually just have them sign in with Twitter, and then you spin up a wallet for them. And Privy actually does have some secure infrastructure where it's not like they're just holding your private key. They actually have it where they use Shamir secure secret sharing, where they have multiple different nodes that are going to verify that you're the owner of this particular social account, like your X account, Google account, whatever. And then they're going to send you a bunch of shards of this key. So instead of having like one database hold your key and they send you that private key when you request it, that would mean that they can use that private key to do whatever they want, right? But what if you sharded it among multiple nodes, and then when you request your key, instead of one node giving it back, it's like multiple nodes are going to give you a little piece of it, and then you recombine it locally. So that's the actual cryptography behind what Privy does. Now, it's connected to your social account though, right? So if someone were to access your Twitter or whatever account you've got connected, they can now access this private key and get your funds. But maybe that's fine for a lot of cases. Like, for example, if I'm only sending a few $100s and it's not like my life savings here, that's actually like a really powerful use case, because now I can like, I don't have to care what a private key is. I don't even have to know what crypto is. I can just sign in with my like Google account and automatically have a place where I can send and receive money from. And that's a really, really magical experience for application developers, because if the first step for a user having to use your app is having a externally owned like private wallet, like, you are losing, I don't know what, 90% of normal people out there. Like, you have to have an experience for people. But the nice thing about Privy is you can actually like connect a wallet or make it such that, hey, I don't actually, like, I want full custody. Well, guess what? You can actually log in with an external wallet too. So now you get the benefit of like, even if someone compromises your social account, you've got that security. And so that's the continuum we're talking about, where can you onboard someone with an existing Web2 social account, still have these underlying security primitives such that one person doesn't have your private key, but then educate users like, hey, this is the vulnerability, and if you want to like store very large amounts of funds, you're going to want to self-custody, and here's a ledger wallet and all these things, but we can't start there.
Man, and this is just making me feel like I wasn't feeling like we were this early about 60 minutes ago, but I'm like, my God, we're so early.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a quick question, and then that seemed like kind of a good natural segue, actually, maybe to talk about where we're going, like with ETH and Pectra, because I know, Alex, you wanted to get into that, but I do want to honor Mike's question. It's been like 20 minutes, Mike. I love you. He said, excuse me, he said, how does Tunnl handle payment for functions? Because Tunnl integrated with Chainlink to make it work. So are users paying for the functions that are required, or is Tunnl fronting that cost? And is it expensive to use?
Yeah. So functions is the way it works is it's got a subscription billing model. So we deposit the link token, and that link token is used to pay for these requests. The way that we are able to do it is we just charge a fee on all of the offers. So because we don't want users to mess around with link, so we just collect USDC and just make sure like the minimum fee is high enough to make sure we're covered for our costs.
Got it.
As for how expensive functions is, it's 3 cents flat cost per request on layer 2 blockchains. Plus, you have to pay for the gas cost of fulfilling your request, which is usually like almost nothing on layer 2s, a penny or less. Ethereum, I know it's more expensive there since it is an L1.
And it fluctuates.
Yes. So, but on the vast majority of chains, it's like a 3 cents, and they actually pegged it to USD in terms of what they bill instead of link tokens, just so that there's less volatility. So that's really something cool too. So I think Link is like the universal gas token. So like, what does this mean? So if I am going on all these different blockchains and I have an application, or I'm like a financial provider of some kind, and I need to touch all these different blockchains. Like, so wait, you're telling me I got to hold a custom token for every single, I got to hold Link and AVAX, or not Link, Ethereum and AVAX and Polygon and all these things. What if instead there were one token that would just be converted to whatever token I need for the gas on a given blockchain? And that to me is an incredibly compelling thing that Chainlink offers, where I can have the subscription, fund it with Link. It's going to be, I'm going to pay it. It's going to be pegged to dollars. So like, if that link price fluctuates, I'm able to look at my balance sheet as an accountant and actually like know where money's flowing without having to manage volatility. And now I don't, like, a business doesn't have to hold all these different tokens. They hold Link, it just does its thing. And I know they're also doing stuff with like payment and other tokens too. That's really cool that I can't quite speak on just because I'm not educated enough. But the fact that like, we can't, if we want institutions and businesses to be able to interact with multiple blockchains, they can't manage the gas token for all these different things. It's just a nightmare. I mean, it's even painful for me. Like, have you ever been like, oh, I want to use this new app. Oh, it's on this new blockchain I've never heard of. Oh, so now I got to get like their gas token and like somehow bridge funds. Like, not going to happen. You need something better.
No. And for people who are new to this is one of the real frustrations you're going to encounter, and why it's so important that you need to learn first how to like buy, sell, send, receive, swap, bridge, store your crypto securely, practice self-custody, turn it back into cash before you even are thinking like, bro, what should I buy today? A lot of people come here because they want to speculate. But if you don't know how to do those things, it's like Indiana Jones walking around the Temple of Doom with his eyes shut. You know what I mean? Like, you are going to fall in a hole that probably has spikes in it. You're going to lose a lot of money. You're going to lose a lot of time. It's really going to suck for you because we're early. We're early.
And
so
it's, as users, like, that shouldn't prevent you. You should be learning these things for sure. Totally. But it's honestly like more like our responsibility as devs to solve it. And I think there's a lot of frustration at how bad the UX is. And like I said, I've definitely lost it on Twitter a couple times. So I've got like a failed transaction, just some cryptic error message. Like, what does this mean? Like, how would a normal user, like, I'm just trying to send USDC right now and I can't figure this out and I'm a dev. It's really on the devs to figure it out. So that's who's responsible for making a good UX. But at the same time, it's going to take time.
Yeah. It's going to take time. You're early. And if you're tuning into the Rise Up Morning Show, you are in the right place. We're live Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. We're live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for Rise Up After Dark. And we're hanging out today with our friend Morgan Kuphal. And we're talking about Tunnl. We're talking about Link. We are talking about Ethereum's Pectra upgrade. Alex, I know you wanted to get to this. I think Morgan is the perfect guy to talk about this with because he's great at making some of this complex technical stuff really clear so that people can understand, okay, like actually though, why does it matter? So let's get into this. And if you've got a crypto question, a suggestion, a good joke, or word of wisdom, leave it in the comments and we'll do our best to get to it before we ride our dogs and ponies into the sunset. Alex, where do you want to take this thing?
So I think you can kind of keep it a little bit higher level, but this is honestly like a really, really, really good exercise in using like the research GPTs that we've kind of been talking about to learn more about this, because there are about 18,000 rabbits being introduced with Pectra, and every single one of them has their own rabbit hole. So there's lots of things to chase. At a very high level overview, this is the integration or the implementation of 11 EIPs, Ethereum improvement proposals. These are 11 different things that are going to do 11 different things to improve the general experience of Ethereum as a network. And there's a couple interesting tidbits that I don't see talked about as much as I think they should. So every single one of these things is worth chasing. I don't remember every single one of them off the top of my head, but a quick Google search or, GPT or Perplexity ask will give you the list of them. And then every single one you can kind of get, the bumper sticker and then go figure out what it does and why that's important. We were talking about account abstraction, the idea of being able to do more with a wallet, which is kind of into this whole concept we were just talking about with decentralization versus centralization, or relinquishing some sort of control for some sort of convenience. Being able to participate in more services with the same wallet. One thing that I did think was funny, and I guarantee this is intentional. One of the features, I don't remember which EIP touches it specifically, but is this idea of like gasless transactions or sponsored transactions, and the ability to pay for them in things other than ETH, which is a really annoying user experience hiccup. I think that's great to see a solution for. Like 3 days ago, Phantom just dropped it out of the blue. Like, hey, you can pay for any transaction and any token that's in the wallet. Like, it's really cool. And it was just like a very funny time because obviously the lead up to Pectra is much bigger.
Alex, real quick, is it coming tomorrow?
May 7th is
got it.
Theoretically implementation.
Okay.
Nick mentioned in the comments over here Fusaka, which is just another upgrade that's happening. And the reason that that's relevant, another good rabbit to chase, is because there were originally more than 11 EIPs proposed for Pectra, but not every single one of them is going to go live at the same time. So some of them kind of get shunted over to other future upgrades. That particular one wasn't ready to ship, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Fun fact, this whole thing. So at its core, right, like what's the point of any major Ethereum network upgrade? You're improving scalability, security, throughput, all these good things. That's the idea, right? Side effect, every ETH layer 2 gets more powerful at the same time, which is just another interesting benefit. So like improvements, because why would you build an ETH layer 2, right? We want to make it harder, better, faster, stronger, but you're building on top of Ethereum to leverage its security. And so one of the EIPs, the number of which is...
Drum roll, please, as Alex tries to recall. Just pick four numbers from a hat. Okay,
4844, which specifically does this is one of my favorite jargon terms in crypto for you to go chase. It expands the blobs. The blobs can process more data. So bigger, badder blobs. Blob is a technical term. That's a fun one to look at.
Which is absolutely fantastic. Would a definition help here, Alex?
Please, hit me.
Okay, in Ethereum, a blob is a new type of temporary data storage. This is introduced a couple EIPs ago. And get this, Alex, blobs...
Get this.
The EIP that introduced blobs is also known as proto-dank sharding. Okay?
I don't know how to sell this thing.
I mean, are you seriously? So this is data that lives outside the execution layer. It's not a part of the regular smart contract state. It's attached to a special kind of transaction known as a blob carrying transaction. It's pruned, they say, after about 18 days. So the data exists temporarily, we can verify it, and then it's gone. And it's mainly a solution to help layer 2s scale cheaply. Before blobs, layer 2s stored compressed data on Ethereum as call data, like for retrieval anytime, which is expensive. With blobs, they can store the data more cheaply. They can still publish it on Ethereum, which is secure. And it's just way lower fees for everyday users. This was introduced about a year ago with an upgrade called Denkun. And if you aren't just thrilled with all like the vernacular yet, are you even alive?
Yeah, no, it's
So,
good.
so that's blobs. They're like post-it notes you might throw up on a bulletin board. They're there for a short time, super useful, and then we take them down to make room for new ones.
I
Please
think
continue.
we'd be remiss if we didn't mention too, there's a little bit of controversy about this because
Yeah.
So what for those that are unfamiliar, so you have this blob storage, and if you forget everything else, just know it makes layer 2 blockchains cheaper. So you've got like, hey, so you might be familiar with layer 2. They're these cheap blockchains, and the way that they're able to be so cheap is they will post their data to Ethereum in a compressed way so that Ethereum has way less load because they're able to offload it to the L2s. But these L2s still have to pay to post their to post data to Ethereum. And that's how Ethereum still benefits, because Ethereum makes, money, transaction fees from these layer 2s that are posting there. So layer 2s are great because like they offer cheap transactions to like, millions of people, but at least they're putting their fees back to Ethereum, which drives value to the Ethereum token. The problem is if you make it dirt cheap for all these layer 2s to now post on Ethereum, well, now what is the demand for ETH? Like their transaction fees, because anybody who wants to transact is now going to transact on a layer 2. And if a layer 2 is paying, like, think of it as rent almost, right? Like we add like reasonable rent rates, but if you hit those rents rock bottom, then what is the actual value of the original chain? And I don't really know everything about it, but just like definitely presenting both sides, this is a huge controversy right now.
It's huge. And even the other thing is blobs they're being arbitraged for maximum extractable value, which is MEV. You'll hear this term a lot if you're in crypto. They're supposed to help reduce fees, and they do. But now bots and sophisticated traders are exploiting them by posting junk blobs. They're maximizing blob inclusion, arbitraging this and that, for all of a sudden the blob fees are very high. So it's like almost any resource on Ethereum gets financialized faster than it can be optimized, if that makes sense. It's a serious scaling problem.
So
go ahead.
First of all, shout out to Mike. Mike, I would say please feel free to chime in, and if you're available at some point,
Absolutely.
This would be a great conversation to have with you, because the accusation of layer 2s being parasitic is really interesting to me, because I struggle as a layperson in the world of it's software engineering and being more technical than I am. If what you're doing with a layer 2 is leveraging Ethereum security to present a scaling solution, like on its face, I have a hard time seeing how increased L2 usage is not still also beneficial to Ethereum, which needs to power all of that stuff. Especially when you look at something like Base, which uses ETH to power itself. I could see maybe if you were talking about like a liquidity thing, kinda like if you're talking about a native, like take Blast has a token, Polygon has a token, like all these things, I could see that argument maybe, but I would still like not fully, I guess, understand or appreciate why it's such a problem. And here, I mean, I kind of agree with Mike. If we're upset about ETH getting cheaper, that feels like a weird thing to be pissed at. especially when, in theory, it could invite more use, like here, right? So 4844, it doubles blob capacity. So we're effectively, multiplying all of this by 2, and you're potentially going to see like data costs on layer 2s estimated to decrease by like up to 90% because of this, and then see way more predictable user fees that are not only predictable, but of course lower. And then, max data per block post Pectra is, like I said, a 2x from where it is right now. Like, these all feel like good things, especially if what you're doing, your whole business relies on leveraging ETH. Your overhead is going to go down significantly, which frees up more capital to do more. Like, the way that I look at it, if you're looking at something that is theoretically a decentralized protocol built on a layer 2 on top of Ethereum, and bear with me, I know it's a little bit more technical, but if you're building something on ETH and throughput goes up by 100% and your overhead drops by a significant amount, and your whole business model is to reward the people who are supporting and using your network through different yield opportunities or whatever, the potential yield that you can offer in my little brain here is like, yields could go up by a significant amount too, which could bring in way more users. And all of a sudden, what are we arguing about? The whole thing just got cheaper and more profitable for everybody involved, and able to process more data. Why wouldn't you then want to do more stuff? Like, I'm personally looking forward to hopefully seeing increase. I would expect that yield-bearing protocols on ETH and in layer 2s could now offer higher yields without having to necessarily change anything about their revenue model, their profit margins on, whatever their overhead is, because it all gets cheaper. Like, that's where my head goes. So I don't know. I guess I'm on the other side of the controversy that, like, this looks good, and I'm kind of struggling to see the downside.
Well, ETH is not a stock. And I think that's really important. I think that ETH is not a bit like Ethereum is not a business, and ETH is not a stock. And so there's a different goal here, where I think a lot of people had purchased ETH as purely an investment. Like, they don't really care about blockchain or any of this stuff. They're just like, hey,
that's fair. Yeah,
ETH is cheap. Like, maybe it'll go up. Like, look at a comparison to Bitcoin, all this stuff. And I think there's a difference in building a protocol, which is the goal of the Ethereum Foundation, and does make sense. Like, you want to reduce fees. If your goal is protocol usage, you want low fees so that you actually invite more people and build out this great ecosystem. I mean, if your goal is like number go up, well, maybe then you do want to kind of like almost max extract, like price highly your block space. I don't really know what the right answer is, because I actually really do see both sides of it, because some people want ETH as sound money. Some people want something that is infrastructure that you can build a lot of applications on.
I would ask you as a follow-up to that, because I think you're 100% correct, that many of the people holding ETH are not necessarily holding it because they're interested in the oil of the decentralized economy as it is intended, perhaps. I've always said, though, like with response to, maintaining some sort of token economy, because it is impossible to make everybody happy, you do not need to think about that with every single upgrade. What you need to try to do, if you want to keep everyone as happy as possible, is make sure that when you alienate somebody with an upgrade that could give them a downside, or in this case, a reason not to hold ETH, not that the price chart's been given all of them a ton of reasons to keep it lately.
Sure.
But you would want to replace that with somebody who would demand it from them. So if they're not, person A is holding it and they're not happy, I hope that now there's a person B that's like, well, I'll take it. And now person A gets to sell the thing that they don't want anymore. They get to recoup investment and go invest in something else. If that's truly their only goal, totally fine. It's a free world that, go for it, knock stuff out. But that's how I would be looking at it. So like, I would be weighing the pros and cons, I guess, of like alienating some like diehard ETH holders that are exclusively here to invest in something that I would argue maybe they fundamentally misunderstand, and somebody to replace the demand that they would leave a gap in, if they left the ecosystem.
So I'll expose myself a little bit here. Like, personally, I don't hold ETH as an investment, but I have a lot of ETH across a lot of wallets. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's the gas that I use for all the things that I do.
Exactly.
So most of my holdings are in like, different protocols or like different tokens that are built on Ethereum, also Bitcoin. And the ETH that I hold, like I have a lot of it, but it's because I need to use it to actually interact and do all the things I do. Like with Tunnl, right? We're sending all these transactions. Like we got to have some ETH so we can actually make that possible. And especially as you expand to more chains, like you need that native token.
Yeah, and Alex, are you familiar with the super sound money theory on ETH?
Vaguely, by name, but not enough to have a conversation about it.
And just no, totally. And just for our friends, a lot of conversations around this. There are some people who are proponents of Ether tokens as super sound money. And this is the concept that like we call Bitcoin sound money, meaning it is hard, it's got a fixed supply, it's divisible, it's got all these properties of money that we want our money to have, fungibility, so on and so forth, but it's really very good at them. But ETH also has those qualities and a couple additional qualities. Like it has no fixed cap like Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is going to continue to be issued for probably another 100 years. ETH can become deflationary, which would mean that supply actually shrinks. Since the merge, they've had a couple of deflationary epochs, periods of time, we call them in the protocol. And so, even though the policy is not fixed, like the network could vote to change something about it, and deflation is not guaranteed, Ethereum's utility, the demand for it, which causes it to be burned, could create a world where if many people are using it, and it's the most used and adopted like token for a protocol in terms of how people are trading it, putting it in their wallets, storing it to use it, then it could become this super sound money, a digital asset with low issuance, deflation, burning, and high utility is like the oil of its ecosystem. I think Bankless is probably the podcast that has talked about it the most. They're kind of like unabashed ETH maxis over there, but they've had some really great episodes where they will like debate this. What is the better sound money, ETH or Bitcoin? And they're always really good listens. I highly recommend them. Now, Alex, I know that you've got to ride your dog and pony into the sunset in just a minute. So in case...
The pit of despair.
Damn it. Wrong sound. I meant to say... I'm doing it twice today. In case you fall into the pit of despair and we don't get you back, do you want to take a second and wrap your mind around a final thought, question, suggestion, good joke, word of wisdom for the audience?
No, I would just say, of course, thank you to Morgan for taking the time. I appreciate it. This was super interesting. I love getting a chance to talk with people who are more technically savvy than I am about literally anything, because it's super interesting and it's the reason that all of this works in the first place, right? Evan, I think this we've touched on this conversation a number of times. Just the dilemma of the layer 2 situation with ETH, and are they parasitic? Are they not parasitic? Lots of conflicting opinions about it. It's an interesting topic that I feel like we could literally dedicate an entire week plus to just that, and still not probably hit all of it. Yeah. And maybe just arrive at an agree to disagree on something. But I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, I think that our industry here is too small for us to be poo-pooing things that could really make it much more appetizing for new people to come into the space and experiment with something. And so I would agree wholeheartedly with Mike's sentiment that if we're sitting here arguing whether or not it's good that ETH get cheaper and faster, that's batshit. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like short-term versus long-term view, right? I mean,
yeah.
We are at the infancy, and I think if you're looking for like price action in a year, you want one thing. Where if you're like, hey, I want to build a more trusted, verifiable world, and I am not just like day trading, but I'm investing in that future, that aligns with my vision. So like I see both sides of it, but at the same time, like I'm an application builder. I want to be building stuff for the next decade, and I think people that have that view, you can make the decisions that you want that make sense for you. And no hate either way, right? Like different people have different goals. Keep that in mind. But that's that's what my vision. I think a lot of people share that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, we say all the time, if what you're doing, and the reason that so many things flamed out is because they built exclusively with a short-term mentality that was chasing price action that caused them to just be nothing more than a flash in the pan. And as soon as you realize that you're unable to sustain any kind of insane hype like that, this is literally the thesis as to why meme coins fail. Because the odds that you can keep a hype campaign going indefinitely is just flawed logic. I wouldn't say impossible, but it's unbelievably unlikely. The odds are not in your favor. So yeah, I am very, whenever you can tell that someone is like implementing something that is exclusively good for short-term pumpamentals, like, oh God, I'm like so bearish on you. You become a day trade, and you negate your ability to be an investment, which is obviously just like bad for your business, and you should be fired.
Yeah. Fire him, Alex.
Some of them are making a lot of revenue, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I guess
or fortunately, I don't know. I mean, it's your free right.
That's fair. If all you want is to max extract and then fuck off to a deserted island, then I guess that's the business model.
As long as you're being transparent,
then
it's the perfect time to buy.
Go off.
Oh my gosh.
I do have to get on the road. Morgan, thank you again for taking the time to hang out with us. I appreciate it. It was a great episode. For everyone who is curious about a little bit more like in the weeds and wants some specifics to dig into for Pectra, I'll put a full list of the EIP numbers that you can search for and all that good stuff in Discord, as well as like a little bumper sticker on each one. I have a write-up for it. So
beautiful.
I will see you guys bright and early. Morgan, great to have you.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Had an awesome time. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll see you later, Alex. As we start to wind the show down and take our dogs and ponies to follow Alex on the road, I think this is a good question to land the plane with. I'd love to get your perspective on this, Morgan. MKZ asks, where can we start to learn more if we're excited about the background for this technology, the vision for the future, and fundamentals of tokens? I'll give you a second to collect your thoughts on this, and I will give a couple resources first to say, if you're here on a social media platform, whether that's TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, we're so glad you're with us. I would recommend you do a search for Chris Dixon. He was my first teacher who illuminated information in a way that I really could understand what blockchain was and why it mattered. CHRIS Dixon, Dixon. If you're listening to the podcast recording, you can navigate right over to your search bar. I would search for Chris Dixon in conversation with Rick Rubin. He was on the Tetragrammaton podcast last year and has a wonderful sort of how blockchain fits into the story of the history of the internet. If you prefer to read, he's got a book called Read, Write, Own, Building the Future of the Internet. And the first time I heard him was on a conversation with Tim Ferriss and Naval Ravikant on Tim Ferriss's show. But Chris speaks about this stuff in a way that makes me go, aha. Every time I listen to him, I learn something. If you're not a reader or a listener, you want to do something more interactive, the good news is you can check out the Rise Up Morning Show podcast. We've got a whole backlog on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we've got a lot of resources for you beyond the podcast. Shorter stuff like on TikTok, I've got a whole playlist that's called Learn to Use Crypto, which takes you from what I think is a good starting point, how to use crypto confidently, safely, and then gives the context, the background, the information on what it is, why it matters. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say everybody trying to learn a new skill should have friends who already know that skill so that they can ask questions if they get stuck. There are lots of places to learn this kind of stuff on the internet, but the loudest voices are not always the most helpful. Sometimes people are going to charge you a lot of money, or they won't be helpful or accessible to you. They'll pick on you, whatever. I recommend you jump into a community of people that are kind to you, welcoming. And the best place I personally know is the Rise Up Discord server. It's totally free to join. We're working on making it easier by shifting over to Circle, a new community platform, a little more user-friendly, I think, than Discord. But in the meantime, check out discord.gg/riseup and jump in. It's totally free. We've got a global community with learners at all levels of experience. I often say the only thing missing is you. Love to see you there. So, Morgan, what about you? If somebody wants to understand this stuff, what kind of resources do you like to share with them?
Yeah, so I think you have like excellent resources for sort of especially beginners and people that want to use it. But I mean, I'm a technical guy, so I would say if you're someone that wants to like actually learn smart contract development and all this, The best person to follow and the best place to start is Patrick Collins, Cypher Updraft. They actually have this whole educational platform that you can learn smart contract development and auditing. It is super cool. So Cypher Updraft, so that's CYFRIN, Cypher Updraft. Patrick Collins on Twitter. You should be able to find him. He's got a really good following there. He is the best person I've found for technical education content for developers, especially. And I think he starts at like all levels. So he's got accessible courses. So if you want to get anything into development or learning about smart contracts, that's where to go. But if you want to get inspired, I have one podcast that started me in crypto, and it is it's the Lex Friedman interview with Sergey Nazarov, Chainlink Labs CEO, founder. He did an incredible job. It's actually from 2021, but that is really how I got my start. So that is the most inspiring thing out there. Definitely check it out.
Man, that's killer. I can't wait to listen to that. If you ping me a link, or I can look for it. I'll back and forth it with you.
I got
we'll
you
be
right
sure
here.
to put it. Oh, heck yeah. We'll be sure to put it in the show notes so that people can listen to it on the podcast or the YouTube recording. You'll be able to click right over to it. And of course, I've got to shout you out, man. If you want to get in touch with Morgan, then you need to check him out on what's the best platform to get you?
Yeah, probably Twitter is the best place if you want to like connect with me directly. Just like tag me or something. DMs are sometimes a mess. If you send me a message on TikTok DMs, I'm sorry, it's lost in the swamp of bots, so definitely don't hit me there. But definitely give me a follow. I'm doing daily videos on TikTok. Still very early at it, but slowly getting better, one video at a time. So it's a really good place. I cover crypto content, just like general business stuff and startup stuff too. So I think those are the best places to follow me. So that's Kuphdev, KUPHDEV. Yeah, TikTok and X.
And don't forget to check out Tunnl, which is TUNNL.
Oh, of course. Gotta plug Tunnl. You can find Tunnl linked in all my bios as well. So if you see it there, and hey, if you're on X and you have like a decent following, so you do need to have like, there's no set number of followers. It's more about your audience quality. But if you have people that are following you in the Web3 community that are like known people, you know, and you have especially a blue Twitter checkmark, you should be able to sign up for Tunnl and start claiming deals and getting paid right now. Again, still early, but we're launching more and more campaigns where you can go on and get paid. So you just sign in as a creator with your Twitter account, and then you can actually see right there. So definitely check it out. Yeah, you will have to log in. So it's the most annoying thing about X. If you have a session logged in, you still have to like sign in when you're signing in with a new app. So little bit of friction, but only so much we can do in working with X's API.
Sure, I get it. I can't wait to get connected, man, and really give it a good test run. After today, I'm so excited about it, and you've got to come back and do a round 2 with us sometime because this was a really well-received conversation. People loved listening. Bullish Bay in the comments says, Morgan,
hey,
are you single?
Unfortunately not. No, I've been actually married my high school sweetheart. So yes,
man, I love
very
it.
lucky.
Heck yeah, man. The folks love you. We love you, and we're really grateful to you for making time. So, Morgan, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you for hanging out with us today, wherever you are, whenever you listen. You really are the best part of what we do. Check out the resources at theriseuppmorningshow.com. Come back tomorrow, Wednesday. Check out the morning show live if you're listening to the podcast. And then leave us your crypto questions. Wherever you are, whenever you listen, we always want to hear from you. Morgan, have you got one last request, thought, good joke, complaint on the way out the door, 8 balls, predictions, anything?
Man, I think just check out Tunnl. We got a lot of exciting stuff planned for more updates. So hey, and you know what? I think my last thing is if you're somebody that's in crypto, spend less time trading, spend more time educating yourself, and think about building something, you know, and that doesn't have to be a smart contract. You don't have to be a dev. Build an audience, you know, make content, just do something that adds value to the community instead of staring at a chart all day. That's my core message.
Beautiful. And the 8 ball fans want to know what it says, so I'll tell them it says swap to Bitcoin. So build something cool. Doesn't have to be a smart contract. And I guess swap to Bitcoin. And until next time, my friends, that's your advice. Everybody, thank you. Stay safe. Be well.
Peace out, everyone. Take care.
Rise up, my friend.